Welcome to the Truth Temple podcast. This is volume 16. We're joined by Maya Orjiekwe, and she's a lifestyle coach, a women's lifestyle coach to be specific. So just give us a bit of a background on who you are, where you're from, and what you're about.
So I am Maya Orjiekwe. I am from Liverpool, and I actually started off as a personal trainer, and then I transitioned into an online female lifestyle coach, specifically coaching women from cultural backgrounds and specifying with the types of foods, the body image problems, the genetic sort of dysfunctions or metabolic disorders, anything to do with making women feel a lot more empowered in the choices with food, exercise, diet, and just taking care of themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously, like you do it a lot more down the women route. How come you don't do it down the male route? How come it's not like sort of everyone?
You know what? I actually did start off coaching men, and I used to work in a gym and used to like take anybody and anyone on. When you're a personal trainer and you start, like, anybody and anyone is what you basically work with, right? But I found that with men there was just a lack of authority. Does that make sense? Because in a coaching and client relationship, you want to feel like you can hold someone accountable. With men, I struggled with that. And I think it was just because at the time I was a 21-year-old girl and these were like 40-year-old men. Like, they're probably not going to listen to me. Do you know what I mean? But I just thought, you know what? I want to work with a set group of people who I understand. And I didn't really understand men. I think they're better off getting maybe trained by someone who relates to them a little bit better.
So when did you first start your PTing?
It would have just been pre-lockdown, whenever that was.
And how old would you have been then?
God, I can't remember. I keep forgetting I turned 25 last week and it's all been a blur. I think I was 19.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
That makes sense. I was 19. I actually got a personal training qualification just up the road in Ori Gym, JD Dale Street, and was in the gym for about 6-7 months. COVID hit, lost every single client, and then I went straight online. So yeah.
Right, okay. So do you think that there would be a difference now? Say if you tried to go to coaching men, obviously you've got a profile of women that you've under your tutelage. Do you think it'd be any different now if you went back like to sort of coaching men? Or do you ever get men approaching you to say like, oh, could you help me out?
I know this sounds weird, but I don't trust their intentions.
No, that does not sound weird.
I don't trust their intentions, and you know why? People want to be helped by people who they can relate to or want to be a bit like.
Right.
I can't understand why any man would want to be coached by me when I'm very much for the girls. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
Like, if I'm talking about menstrual cycles, body image, and things that aren't really what men talk about, it just doesn't align well. It's like, there's that book. Is it Stupid Everywhere? People Stupid Everywhere. Have you ever seen that book? What's it called? People Are Stupid or something like that. That's what it's called. Right. It basically says that you've got like different personality types, like red, green, blue. And sometimes you just don't sync with people. And that's what I've learned along the way. And I just don't think coaching men for that fitness side is probably what will work for them. And not fair on them, not fair on me. So
you've coached over 300 women to lose weight up to 25 pounds. So in metric terms, that's like 11.5 kilograms. And you say you do this within 90 days as well. Mm-hmm. So what made this a target for you to aim towards?
As in like fat loss or working with cultural women?
Just working with cultural women in terms of pursuing fat loss.
Do you know what it was? Is that when I grew up, I think every single woman's probably been through this like poor body image stage, because once we start hitting like 12, 13 and we look online, our body starts to change. And I remember significantly being about 13 and just doing really stupid things to lose weight. Like, so for example, like I'd wear elastic bands around my waist if I went out, or I'd crash diet, I'd starve myself, I'd go keto, I'd do all these things. And like I'd edit my pictures, make myself look smaller everywhere. And then I could just blatantly see it. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of it wasn't that, you know, I need to lose a lot of weight. I did need to lose some, but I needed to be healthier, you know, and my choices, my decisions, how I live my life, it just needed to change. And then what I noticed is that, okay, there's certain foods that I enjoy that aren't diet friendly. You know, I'm half Nigerian, half British, and a lot of the foods that we see in the fitness industry now are very much like chicken, rice, broccoli, protein shakes. And yeah, that works. But when it comes to the foods that I wanted, it just never fit in. So I started going through a bit of a cycle of like disordered eating, like not eating some days, then overeating. And I just wanted to change. But so many women felt the same way that I did. So when I obviously stepped into the industry, a lot of it was about training, but I realised how quickly so many women do not have a good mindset on foods. They don't understand nutrition. They don't know how to actually lose the weight and keep it off without being unhealthy. So my aim really is to make sure that any woman who does embark on a fat loss phase, one, can enjoy foods, not restrict them, but then actually feel like the habits that they've built, they can keep the weight off. And that's why, me personally, I don't fluctuate in weight as much as I used to. I don't feel like I have to crash diet anymore because I know what's healthy. That makes sense.
Yeah. So obviously, like you do it in a cultural way. So like obviously you have Nigerian heritage, but what if someone comes to you from a different culture? How do you sort of adapt to that culture and say, like, adapt what they could eat? Because obviously they would eat miles different food than in your culture. So how do you adapt to that?
Do you know what? The food isn't the hard part, really. The food is understanding what someone consumes, and then obviously the calorie intake, the time in the meals, the things that are obviously going to improve their energy. So I've coached a lot of women from Southeast Asian backgrounds, Spanish, even had Brazilian clients, and a lot of the time it's base carbohydrates, it's your proteins and stuff. What actually is the biggest common denominator is their environment. So there's certain expectations on food and social events. So for example, I've done a lot of coaching around Ramadan.
Right.
And when it comes to that time of the year, obviously we know that we're not eating around specific times and you're fasting. But then when you're trying to diet and you're having your iftar or your suhoor and you've got to eat a big mound of food with your family and it's social, that's where the problem usually comes in for a lot of these women. It's knowing how to manage who they are, their culture, what they get up to, their family environments, friends environments, and aligning that with a diet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So once we understand what they're eating, maybe we have to research some foods or certain things. Like I had one client, she was Polish and she was putting in things on MyFitnessPal. I was like, I don't know what that is. I needed to go on like Asda and see what it was. The food's the easy part because it's either a carb, protein, fat, whatever. But it's actually getting that woman to believe that, okay, this doesn't have to be an obstacle all the time. You can actually eat these foods. You don't have to feel guilty because you're probably going to eat them for the rest of your life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you mentioned there about timings of eating. So like, what are some of the misconceptions around women in terms of the timings of when they eat? Like, what would you say is the best way to do it? Would it be to break it down into every few hours? Is it the 3 meals a day profile, or what would you say?
Do you know what? That is such a good question because, have you ever heard that like misconception, like you shouldn't eat past 9 p.m. and stuff?
Yeah.
So I used to be very much like, it doesn't matter what time that you eat. It doesn't matter, where you place your foods. And in like a calorie consumption way, it doesn't. But when we're looking at energy regulation, being optimal for your training, actually looking at like blood sugar spikes and how obviously someone's processing the food, the hunger levels, I think it does, but it's always significant to the person. Like, let's say you're a night shift worker and I'm a 9 to 5er. Where we may choose to eat may be different for us both energy-wise, but it's more about knowing what that person wants. So majority of the time what I usually see is women skip breakfast. Lots of people skip breakfast. It doesn't mean that's a necessity, but what happens is when they skip breakfast, I'm starving by the end of that night. And that's where the Dominoes and the takeouts and all of this stuff comes, which isn't nutritionally beneficial for somebody. So instead of maybe focusing on the timing that you're eating, one, it's obviously going to be the foods that you're consuming and then what works best for you. Like, when do you find the best times for you to eat? Do you have like a set?
I mean, I've done I've got a sports science background, so like I've done the whole spectrum of like, eating breakfast. Like I was never a breakfast guy. Like I always really struggled eating breakfast because almost it was forced down us as kids. Right now, I almost fast in mornings and I have like sort of a protein shake as my breakfast, and then I'll eat periodically through the day. But I normally load up meals, so like I'll have a small breakfast, a small dinner, and then my tea will be quite substantial. But it's like you said, if like I had to get that right, because if you get to your tea time, for example, I need about probably, I don't know, just less than 3,000 calories a day. If I get to my evening meal and I have like a ridiculous portion of like 1,500 calories, sometimes you end up eating way more than you need. So it's about just, like I said, that almost like counting your calories of what you're actually eating in that content. But I usually find it easier to load up throughout, like have small amounts in the first half of the day and then have big amounts later. I find it very difficult to wake up in the morning and have a substantial breakfast and then go. I usually train in the morning, and the last thing I want to do is when I'm training is be on a full stomach and whatnot. So I think it differs from person to person, but it's interesting getting the female perspective, because I know like me, a lot of females do struggle eating in the morning. I think that's more of a female thing than a male thing. So it is interesting. So if I was coming to you as a woman and I wanted to go on this weight loss journey, what are some of the first steps that you'd take us through in that journey?
So we have a bit of a process. So my key thing is I don't want to work with everyone. right? So if someone comes to me and it's genuinely out my scope and I don't feel I can help that person, so I've always said, probably not going to be the person that you hire if you want to step on stage one day and do a bodybuilding competition, right? It's just not me. Yeah. Never done it myself. I can't give you the tools. But if you're somebody who actually wants to enjoy your life and eat regular meals, your cultural dishes, train, you don't spend hours in the gym, you make it a lifestyle, we can help. So the first thing that we understand is, what is the actual goal and is that realistic? One thing I've noticed a lot with women in general from any different cultures is they have body standards that are sort of ingrained into them. Do you know what I mean?
Like, just elaborate.
So let's obviously look at maybe, I'll compare my clients. Let's say we get someone from a Southeast Asian background and then we get someone from more of a Caribbean background.
Right.
What their ideal body type for both of those individuals usually are kind of different.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe one of them is chasing being very, very lean and skinny because being a lower level weight and being slim is a sign of like wealth, status, very popular in Southeast Asian communities. But then when we look at like Caribbean backgrounds or maybe even African backgrounds, Brazilian backgrounds, curvy is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get the woman in front of us who's maybe very, very lean and she wants to be thick, we'll say, then we know that's going to be building muscle, but she thinks it's weight loss. And then maybe we get someone who's like, okay, I'm 60 kg, I want to lose weight. And then they tell us that they want to be 40 and you're like, that's a bit low. So understanding if it's going to be realistic.
Right.
We take into any considerations exactly where that person's from. So if they are Muslim, maybe practice a certain religion or maybe they're whatever it is. And then we sort of shift that around any social events that might come up. And then we do a deep dive on food. And it isn't just obviously what they eat, it's also how they think about it. Like, do they use certain words to describe certain meals? Do they feel guilty eating certain things? Once we've got all that structure there, the second part's training. And the beauty of the training is you'll know as well with your sports science background, like training can be effective in so many different ways and there's loads of different benefits from loads of different type of training. I actually used to do the thing that every personal trainer does, just resistance train, just get in the gym, lift these weights, shoulder press, dumbbell, and yeah.
No cardio.
No, God, just lift. And you know what? You do need it. Resistance training for women is medicinal, right? It's the best thing you can do for your health, for everybody as well. But for us now, it's about actually understanding what that person wants to do. So we've got some people who are doing high rocks, CrossFit, running clubs. As long as they are optimal with it, they're recovering well, and they're also keeping resistance training there. We just build it around them. It doesn't mean that there's just a specific way of doing things. It's a lot more personalised than probably what my old coaching used to be.
Yeah.
It was very much like meal plan,
Yeah.
training plan, off you go.
Forced, yeah.
See you in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I just hated it. I felt like I wasn't getting the results that I wanted with anyone, and I didn't feel like I was actually helping because you could have got that off ChatGPT.
Yeah, it's a bit robotic sort of thing. And, yeah.
Most personal trainers are doing that now, though. You know, I've seen lots of programs and stuff that is just very generic, and I think the problem is it doesn't reflect well on the trainer and it doesn't work well for the person. And
It's not specific enough.
Yeah. And yeah, the amount of women I've spoke to who were like, yeah, I've had a coach before. Yeah, I've had a personal trainer. I've had multiple, but they didn't really listen. And it's like, it doesn't mean the trainer was a bad trainer. It just means there was a disconnect between you and that person. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's interesting. Like the last point you just said there. What are some, you said about the disconnect there, but what are some of the requirements that you look for? When you're talking to your clients, what are some of the requirements? So when they're facing this weight loss journey, what are the bare requirements that you have of them?
They need to engage. The truth is, I don't care if someone give me feedback negative for 6 weeks, like it was all, this is shit, it's not working. I don't care as long as they're turning up, because at the end of the day, a lot of this process is about mindset. I know a lot of people think, you know, the diet and the nutrition and the training matters. Of course it does, because that's what's going to get you the result. But even in the longer term, it's your ability to change or want to adapt. Like for some, it's very easy. You give them a program and they fly through it. But for a lot of women, there's a lot of self-doubt. There's poor mentality towards diet. And there's sometimes things that genuinely I can't help with. You know, I've had clients in the past where they do have eating disorders and I can't help that. Like I don't wear that hat. I can help you with your poor food relationship. But I think the one thing that I always want to help women understand is that you've got to be open. You know, I can't help what I don't know, and you don't know what you don't know either. So I think having that relationship where someone can be open with you, talk about things, even the hard things that may not actually have anything to do with fat loss, is how you get the long-term success.
So you brushed on it a little bit there, but what are some of the biggest excuses that women come out with who perhaps aren't as successful as others on this weight loss journey of yours?
Oh, I wouldn't say they're excuses, because the truth is like, it's the difference between belief and knowing, right? A lot of women believe that this is the way they're supposed to be, and then a lot of women believe that this isn't the way they're supposed to be. So let's imagine someone has come from like a background of obesity, right? The family's obese, and they also genetically inherit that. They are a little bit larger, they carry excess body fat, they've been told for years and years that they're overweight. You know, everyone remembers the trauma in school when you used to have to stand on them scales in the middle of PE. I don't know why we did that, but we did. They will truly believe sometimes that that is the way they should be, and that's the way things are going to be for them for the rest of life. And then you have other women who are like, no, this isn't me, like this body isn't mine, do you know what I mean? And I think the one thing that a lot of people do is they either hide behind it or ignore it. I've always said the difference between men and women is men push the problem back and pretend it doesn't exist, and women live in the problem. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if we have women who maybe, I'm trying to give you an example, maybe have something like PCOS, like a metabolic disorder that has slowed down their fat loss, or their just general health, though it's reversible through diet and exercise, they will sort of use that as
an excuse.
Yeah, like I can't because of this,
of that, yeah.
or I can't because all my family are overweight. I can't because I've always been slim, and they don't give themselves a chance, right? Like I think a lot of people just want to hire someone who shouts at them, who says do this, do that. But if you've had all of that, then you've got to actually think about what it is you're thinking that's going to get you the results that you want as well. So I think it's about breaking down that whatever self-limiting belief they've got on themselves, it doesn't have to last.
Yeah. So what are some of the misconceptions that a lot of women have around the training mainly?
Probably just gonna sound like a general Instagram reel here, like lots and lots of cardio, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of proof that, you know, when you're putting your body through a lot of high levels of cortisol like that, especially when we look at women with like female health problems, it's actually not beneficial for them. That's one. Always eating less. You know, the best results I've ever got with a lot of my clients, they've had to start eating more, and it really baffles them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
no, I know exactly what you mean.
you know, it's like, oh my God, like I've been on the Cambridge diet, I've been doing keto, I've been doing all this. And then you're like, hey, eat 3 square meals and a snack a day. And suddenly the world's freaking collapsed because they're like, what? How am I losing weight on this? Like I have one client at the moment and she's absolutely amazing, but she was coming to me eating genuinely around 600 calories a day. And then I was like, well, surely that's someone who's eating this much, it should just be dropping. But the food was earned back just in different ways, maybe on the weekends and stuff. So it's definitely the food always eating less, thinking that they're going to always be stuck that way, and then thinking they need to do hours and hours of cardio, when really a lot of people are more beneficial on 3 to 4 regulated training sessions with general movement, you know. People don't move enough now. COVID changed everything. Do you know what I mean? Everyone is so sedentary. And I don't think they even realise it until you say, hey, how many steps are you doing? Or how long have you sat on your laptop today? You don't move enough. So it's very hard to see results if you're just sitting down all day. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's interesting that, because like you said, COVID, I think COVID was a mere catalyst in terms of it just sped up that. I think that it's been happening like that for a long, long time with technology and the way things are now. So everything's so accessible, social media, all that sort of stuff, everything's online. People are just becoming, like you said, so much more sedentary. I remember when I was doing my degree, like it said that, like even in a short 50-year span, the obesity levels had gone up from like literally like 10% to like 24, 26% or something like that between men and women. But what are some of the misconceptions around diet that they have? Obviously, you talked about a little bit about training, but what are some of the misconceptions about diet in terms of, you just said then that they couldn't sort of get the mind behind, oh well, I'm eating more, so why am I all of a sudden burning this weight? Is that a very common thing?
Yeah, I think as women, we are always taught to eat less, whether we like it or not. And I think Devil Wears Prada and all the films like White Chicks and stuff have probably made us sit there and go, okay, we need to be skinny. Like, I think for a long time, we've watched people like enhance their bodies through surgery or crash diet to stay lean. And when you're a woman in a very normal body type and you're not sure which way to go, you will end up doing stupid stuff, and it's usually with food, right? If you don't have the 20k to spend on surgery in Turkey, you're going to start dieting and crash dieting and doing some crazy stuff. I think what a lot of women feel like is that, one, that they need to eat less, but when they eat something that isn't technically diet friendly, that's where it's bad. Like, they cannot actually continue what they're doing. They don't understand energy balance. They don't understand that, you know, eating one large meal doesn't mean that you've wrecked the whole week type of thing. Not everyone should track calories either. Like, we do a lot of calorie tracking within mine. For some people, it's actually more about the nutrition and being a little bit more healthier in choices. But I think the one thing really that is the massive misconception is, you know, I used to say a lot of the time, there's no good or bad foods. There is in some degree if we look at ultra processed foods, but at the end of the day, thinking that way isn't actually going to get anyone further either. A lot of women do need to solve the food relationship before they even start dieting, because if you're someone who has a binge mentality or restrict mentality, chances are, if you look at the statistics of people in the next 5 years, they usually say someone regains all the weight back. The only way you're going to overcome that really is losing the weight, building a little bit of muscle, eating more to be optimal so you can actually feel like you can sustain a lifestyle with it. So it's definitely the eating less and food mentality, you know, what you think is good and bad and what is actually best for somebody. So yeah.
Why do you think it's like, I've had it in the past where I've really struggled to be compassionate with a lot of women, because I used to put the evidence in front of them and say, well, listen, if you train a lot, you get more muscle mass, and then obviously the more muscle mass you have, that uses more calories. That's why you eat more and you burn it. And you'd have the evidence there to say, well, if you want to lose weight, you actually need to put on some muscle mass, and then that's how you lose weight. But no matter how you did that, they'd always sort of backtrack to everything they know of. Oh, well, I just won't eat instead.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is there, even though you have the evidence right in front of them?
Yeah.
Why do you think?
We're trying to deconstruct years and years and years of obsession with weight for women. And the truth is that I think as a coach, what you need to remember is that even no matter what you say, the popular vote will always go first.
Yeah,
so what their boyfriend's saying, what their friends are saying, what their family members are saying. Do you know how many times I've probably met women who they know what we're doing is right, but they got more positive compliments and encouragement from their family members doing the shit that shouldn't be done. Does that make sense?
No, completely.
It's very common that even if you do know what's right, you're going to go for the quick because it's the one that gives you the instant gratification first. And as coaches and personal trainers, to be honest, sitting there and talking about the evidence is pointless.
Yeah. So do you think that's, sorry to cut you off, do you think that's like an emotional thing then?
Yeah, of course. Like, I think everybody does things to be seen. Everyone wants to be heard and seen, right? Like, imagine you were doing a 6-month bulk, and everyone was complimenting you, and everyone was like, "Oh, you look sick. You look huge." Do you know what I mean? You're getting your head is growing without maybe even noticing it. But then you start to diet, and then everyone's like, "Oh, you look skinny. You need to put some more mass on." And no one had anything positive to say on that. That's what women are dealing with. The minute that they go into work and they've just finished this Cambridge diet and they're looking slim, right? Maybe not healthily, maybe they're on Ozempic, maybe they're on something, but they're getting the compliments. So in the moment, I think that's what people are chasing. I want to be seen. I want to be heard.
The short-term thing rather than the long-term.
Like, it's like saying, do you want 100k now or 200k in a year?
Yeah.
Right? What's someone going to do? And think of the 100k as the instant compliments from doing the crash diets. Think of the 200k as actually doing it properly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's hard to find. A woman has to be ready to accept that shit isn't actually going to work for them anymore. If she's not, she'll just keep cycling.
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
Interesting. So obviously we're talking about dieting, but have you ever had any experience with carnivore diets? Like, what do you think about carnivore diets?
Any diet that centers focus on one macronutrient or one thing is probably bad for you. That's what I think. Obviously, I love steak is my life. Yeah. But I ain't going to eat steak every single day. One, I ain't got the money to. High quality steak. I think what it is as well is these carnivore diets and vegan, all of this stuff, right? If it's for the moral compass, I agree with it. So if you're vegan because you genuinely care about the animals and the world, then yeah, okay. Going vegan for a health choice is absolutely ridiculous. It's the most stupid thing you can possibly do. But I think a lot of it has just become a buzzword. If you throw a word in front of a diet, you'll find a small group of following and you'll get more attention. Like, if I was to say, here's what I eat in a day as someone who has balanced foods, you'd probably listen. But if I said, I only eat meat all day, here's what I eat, which one are you going to be more inclined to maybe pay attention to and think, oh, I'll watch this? all of them diets are just tactics for someone to get their eyes on them, I think. What do you think of them though? Like, do you agree with them?
I mean, if you were to, because my next question was going to be the vegan diet, so obviously you already shot that down. I have a very similar thing of that, of like, you know, if you want to do it for moral reasons, then I understand, but you are putting yourself at a massive disadvantage in terms of just training and in terms of your general health. The carnivore diet is miles better. I do think that is a good thing, but then, like you said, if you're going too far down the rabbit hole with just meat all the time, I don't think that is substantially enough. I think there are other things that can speed that up. But like you said, if I had them like loads of money and stuff like that, I probably would eat way more meat and go for that. I don't think I'd ever predominantly be a just carnivore. I think I'd try and cut my carbs down a little bit. But in terms of eating just meat all the time, I think you just get bored of that. It's kind of like what you were saying with the training as well. Like when you go too extreme, when you don't just look after the small problems and just like, you know, try and tide yourself over, you go too extreme down the way of something, it's not going to last very long.
Not at all.
And I feel like that'd be me with the carnivore diet. I'd probably end up getting sick of meat all the time.
But you know what as well? What we've got to think about is where you live in line with a diet, right? I know that sounds stupid, but I've traveled quite a lot, right? If I was to go vegan, it'd be much easier for me to go vegan somewhere like Bali or Thailand or somewhere like that, because fruit and veg and things from the ground are so easy to come by, right?
Yeah.
But when we're talking to the woman who has 3 children, who, you know, has a budget for foods, when she goes to a local supermarket, the things that are vegan or all those Beyond Meat shit, like, I don't eat them, but yeah, my mum loves them. The price and the cost effectiveness and the ability to actually keep a diet up like that is very hard.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about you, but you see, when I go away, my eating is like flawless. Like, I'll eat my 3 meals, I'll have all my fruit, I don't really snack. And probably because you're busy doing stuff, you know, unless you're an all-inclusive, you're busy doing stuff and you're traveling, but your environment changed your diet so much, and that's why so many places in the world are so much more healthier than the UK and the US, just by simple things that they follow. So yeah, if you want to go to an extreme on a diet and you feel like it's going to be beneficial, I still think though that you need to have the balance of all foods. Otherwise, it's just you're always nutrient deficient in something.
Yeah, like you were saying, it's like a cultural thing. Like I was watching a thing literally this morning. It was saying in Japan, this journalist went around asking Japanese kids like, "What's your favorite food?" And they were going like, "Oh, broccoli." And he was like, next one. And then the next one was like, "Oh, white rice." And then the next one was something daft like eggplant. And he was like, and then he turned to his translator. He goes, "Are these kids like trolling me?" He goes, "No." He goes, "Like here, we teach kids to take pride in what they eat and they enjoy the healthy food." He's like, "Did you not do that in your countries?" He was like, "No way." Like, you know, you ask a kid in America or England, it'd be like chicken nuggets or burger or whatever.
Beige. When I see my nephew's food, my nephews run on 90% McDonald's. Like, and don't get me wrong, they're dead sporty, they're dead fit, they're dead healthy and whatever, but like, if you actually did bloods, there would be Ronald McDonald just flowing through there. Like, it's ridiculous. But then obviously, when I was away and I was seeing children eating and doing, like, it's just completely different.
It's another world, isn't it?
And I think that's the problem with the UK and the US. I think the US is even worse for it. Like, we have a lot of things in our supermarkets that probably shouldn't run, but over in different countries, they eat everything from the ground. You know, it's from a local butcher. There isn't supermarkets that they go to usually, or if they do, it's still that stuff there, the healthier stuff that hasn't been processed. So
I think that's it. With the Western world, everything is pumped with preservatives, corn syrups, all these sugars and like sugar deposits and all. What's the word? Replacements and all that sort of stuff, and it's horrendous. Like you said, like when you go abroad, like I agreed with what you said there about Bali. I've never been to Bali, but I've been abroad where like they have like local supermarkets everywhere. Like that's the norm. There's no Tesco and there's no like this and that. It's just local supermarkets, and you buy your food fresh from them. Yeah. And you eat it on the morning. Like I said, like I'm the same as you when I go away. I do eat probably a bit more, but that's you're burning more and whatnot, and then you're obviously enjoying yourself being away, but it never really, I always feel better eating away than I do here, because it's like you're eating like pasta and stuff like that, fresh like seafood, fresh cooked, like the fresh cooked stuff. So obviously throughout your journey in your work, what are some significant challenges that you've come into contact with, and how did you overcome them challenges?
I have a challenge a month, me. I think the first one was definitely identity. I think so. I grew up in Huyton. Anyone knows what Huyton's like. Not many people look like me in Huyton, right? And it was never a thing. Do you know what I mean? I just sort of had my friends, had a great childhood. Like, school was okay. There was some things that obviously everyone... And I thought that I got over that once I left school, of who I wanted to be and what type of person I wanted to be. But then I stepped into the industry and I just become very much like, I'll just give people whatever they want. So I call them the booty band wankers. Like, oh, I'm in my living room with my booty band doing all this. And like a lot of it was just like, do you know what, Maya? Just look good, get in shape, take pictures, you'll make it. That's what I thought it was going to be. I was going to be an influencer.
Right.
And then as I started like actually developing a soul, like, and things that I liked and enjoyed, I was like, I don't want to be seen as just some girl who stands in a living room with a booty band or takes pictures of herself and sells supplements. That's not me. Like, I'd much rather talk about things that matter to women and help them on a psychological point as well. Like, I want someone to relate to me, not just follow me because of what I look like. Do you know what I mean? But I think for so long I just stayed in that mindset. This is what I need to be to make it, right? Yeah. Like, this is how I need to portray myself. Don't say certain things. Don't swear online. I had just this big identity crisis, and I just thought, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to be exactly who I am. And since then, it's just been so much easier with getting clients, keeping up business and feeling happier. I think that's the main thing.
So you said about like a lot of girls that go down that route. Girls that go down that route of like the influencer and doing things that, like, you know, they don't necessarily feel comfortable doing. What do you think the consequences of that will be?
I will never actually, like, you know, influencers, I rate them highly, by the way, because to keep up an image for so long and be consistent with that image, like, most days I look homeless. Like, I will just sit there in a pair of joggers and be on my laptop all day. That's a hard one to come by. Everyone's got eyes on you. You know, you've got to stay in shape. People notice, they want to know a lot about your life and stuff. And some people do it differently. You know, there's maybe like Chrissy Chella. She's amazing. She is an influencer, but she also owns a brand. And the stuff that she must have to do on a day-to-day is crazy. Do you know what I mean? But I think if you're just there to be seen, you can't get angry if that's all people ever see you as. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like,
if that's what you put out into the world, that's all you're ever going to be.
Yeah. Like, I had this conversation, like, see, when you're into the gym, don't know what you think about this, you start to see your body a lot differently from someone who doesn't train does. So, like, let's say, for example, some guy walked in now and he was built like Terry Crews, right? He was huge. We'd noticed that he's got big triceps, big shoulders. Someone else would just call him hench.
Yeah.
So as a woman, I think when you've started to train and build muscle, you see your body as just muscle, right? Big bum, big legs, strong shoulders. But a lot of other people, if they don't have that same mindset, they sexualize that. So when women are online taking pictures of themselves in the gym or portraying themselves, I know what they're doing, they're showing off the hard work, but another person is just going to automatically sexualize that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get you.
So when obviously you're posting pictures like this, though it may be harmless for you, maybe sometimes it's for attention, whatever, you're only going to attract a certain group of people. And it's either girls who just want to look like or creepy men.
Yeah. Yeah, like I know it was that's an interesting take on it, in terms of like you're saying, like they're sort of honing in on what they've been doing that day, or like the progressions that they're showing. But I think I don't know, it's a hard one to say, but I do think a lot of the time it is for attention, a lot of the stuff we do. But I know what you're saying. Like, there are some instances where, you know, like, the one thing I do love, like, in life, and there's nothing more I love more than this, is like when the progression pictures. Like, I think it's so good when someone goes from a journey where, like, they've been overweight, or they've been, you know, like, massively untrained, and then they show them 2 years later and it's like ridiculous. So people like that, I'm like, fully, like, I can usually identify those kind of people that are really doing it for the process, and they fell in love with the process, and they've gone through that. But then I have seen it, witnessed it, where I've just seen girls come in, do a bum pump, take a picture, and then they're off. I'm just like, oh my god.
But everything's for attention in this life. Do you not think? Like,
course, absolutely.
No matter what you do, people love eyes on them, or positive affirmations towards them, right? Like, just some people like it in different ways.
Yeah.
You know, if you grew up on social media, you know, we can't even lie. Like, if we were both to post a reel tomorrow together and it hit 300k views, we'd be buzzing. Do you know what I mean? We wouldn't even mind some of the negative comments that we got in there if we're getting more positives. And I think when it's anything to do with body, influencers, I don't think they start off with that intention. If they just look good, they're going to attract a certain group of people. But then if you only want to be seen for that, you've got to accept what's going to come with it.
You'll end up like almost thriving off that and going forth with that. I think it's one of them, like when you achieve, because it's something we've talked about before, of like when you hit them milestones, like you always have a goal, don't you? Like, oh, I'll get this many views, but then once you hit it, it's like, well, I want to either do it again or I want more, and it's always more.
Yeah, of course.
So where do you think where do you think a lot of young females go wrong in terms of on this journey that they take in weight loss? Where do you think a lot of people go wrong?
Do you know what? That's an interesting one, because I think you need to go wrong before you go right anyway.
Right.
And truth is, it's not even young females. It's just women at all stages in life. You know, like I have coached women who are 60 and I've coached women who are 18, and some of them think exactly alike. Yeah, and it's crazy. I've coached women who are in their 30s and doing the wrong thing with diet, or just calling themselves fat every day for the whole of their life. And it's took them 10 years to get to this point, but then 6 months they've completely changed their life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think, truth be told, it's not sometimes our fault that we think the way we think when it comes to diet and exercise, because as you know, it's very environmental. Like if you've
feedback.
Yeah, of course. If you've come from a family who sit on their arse all day, you're probably going to sit on your arse all day. If you come from a family of CrossFitters, you're probably going to CrossFit, right? I think eventually what it is that they will realise that that's not actually serving them anymore. And whatever that is, maybe it's overtraining, maybe it's an eating disorder, maybe it's whatever, and they haven't actually got to that point where they want to change it yet. But it's a hard one, because everyone's going to go wrong in something. It's just that they have to take some time to realise that.
If you were to put it down to one thing that women do wrong with their lifestyle, what would that one thing be? If you were to put it down to one thing, the main thing that people get wrong.
Just unrealistic in so many ways. Like, you're unrealistic that this 20 kg is going to take 2 months to lose.
Yeah.
You're unrealistic that you can look like Meg the Stallion in 3 months' time. You're unrealistic in thinking that this one diet is going to make you happier. You're just very unrealistic. And it's probably not your fault you think that way. Probably TikTok, Instagram, and years of generational trauma. But you have to be realistic in this process if you really want to see it work. I think that's the one thing.
How do you go about instilling that into them?
You know what? I let them go wrong. You know what it is? Sometimes a coach, I think we feel like we have to save people. Oh, no, don't do that. Like, don't do that. This will happen, right? I've had clients before who have been on programs with me and then randomly gone on Ozempic. Yeah? They've left, they've come back, they've told me this was the worst thing I've ever done. I'm ill, my hair's falling out, this is happening. But I couldn't have stopped that. Do you know what I mean? They were automatically going to do that, and they were seeing results anyway, but they've done it anyway, right? I let people go wrong. So I let them fuck the diet on the weekends and overeat. I let them do the guilt tripping of themselves once or twice before they realise that it's not serving them. I don't think a coach's job is to dictate. It's to help someone reframe that this is how it should be and this isn't serving you anymore. But someone has to figure them out themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Have you ever heard of like this? Like, I think it was called the starving kitten theory. Have you ever heard of that? So I was coaching a few people. I've coached people, not like you, like where I've been an official PT, but I've had people ask me like, like what should I do for this and what should I do for that? And at first, when I first started doing it, for the first few people, I was always like trying to overlook everything they were doing. Like, you were really hands-on. Like, don't do it that way, do it this way. Like, oh, you need to be in at this time, you need to be in at this time. And I was like super on it. And like, they just didn't listen. So then I remember hearing it in uni, like this theory of like, when you coach him, sort of treat him like a starving kitten. So if they come back, you tell them what to do, and then you just let them go again. And then if they come, and then like, if they're not going to do it, then you just leave it on them. It's kind of like a guilt thing, of like, leave it on them. And then if they really want to change, they'll come back and ask for more. And then they'll be like, right, what do I do here? And then you tell them. And then again, it's like a cold shoulder thing where you turn away and then they'll go and do it. And I found that to be a lot better. Like, in terms of like, people reacted a lot better to that rather than me being there, being on it. Because I think they rely on you for motivation then. And then you become very drained. Because I find it very difficult motivating myself. Like, I'd never really miss a day's training, but it's a difficult thing. Like, you know, like some days I'm just like, oh,
not again.
Like today, like I woke up and I thought the sun's nice, and then got to the field and I'm like, I have to do a 3K. Like, you know, get around the field and I'll do it, and then I'll sunbathe. But it's super difficult. So never mind having to then do it to someone else. Like, do you ever get that where obviously you have to look after yourself, but do you ever get it where you're just like running out of motivation? How do you treat them then? Do you give them the cold shoulder sometimes, or do you even more? Do you sort of ramp it up more where you focus on them more?
So one thing that I started doing is asking people how they want to be coached.
Right.
I know that sounds crazy because people just be like, coach me. But we've got like 3 options. So we'll have firm, no bullshit. So someone who's very maybe red personality type, we'll call it, where they're just like, give me the truth, give me the heart. I don't care what you have to say to me, just tell me. Then we've got firm but fair, where, you know, we can accept the situation, but we want to install a little bit of accountability there for yourself. Like, hey, okay, that happened, but now we need to get back to it, you know, type of thing. And then we'll have understanding and empathic. And this is where we've got people who are dealing with things that they've guilt tripped themselves for years. So if I come shouting at them, it's probably not going to work. And you know what the funniest thing is every single time someone answers that, it's probably about 20% of people who actually get their coaching style right. Yeah.
Right.
So, for example, I know how I take feedback in business, but I don't really know how I take feedback in fitness.
So how do you take it in business?
In business, tell me the shit. Right. Yeah. If you're gonna make me cry, or I don't mind being told that something's a bag of shit in business because I know that I am not where I want to be yet. Yeah. But in fitness, if I said to someone, listen, I've had a long day, I'm pushing the gym back till tomorrow, I know in myself that I'm going to do it. I just needed to reorganize my day. So if someone was to come to me and be like, oh, you don't want it enough, I'd just be like, oh my God, cringe, get away from me, right? Like I'd just be like, shut up, I'm a coach myself. But when it obviously comes to other people, they need to find out what their type of coaching style is by working with us and working with other personal trainers. So like I had this one girl who came to me once and she was like, I just need you to genuinely like shout at me, like genuinely message me every day and tell me to get to the gym, like kick me up my arse and stuff. So I did that and she still weren't doing what she was meant to be doing, right? So I'm looking through what is actually happening, and she actually needed someone to understand her a bit better. Like she was a single mum, she had a lot of stress, you know, her family members were sick, there was so much going on in her life. Me being harsh and nasty to her and it wasn't doing anything for her, even though she thought it did. So for me, I like to explore what they think they want. And usually they don't need that. They need something completely different.
So in that process, how did you find out what she needed? How did you adapt to that?
Her feedback, what she says, energy, right? Like if you're a people person, you'll know. The best way to describe it is like, who's someone who's really close to you right now?
My brothers.
Okay, so if he was upset, without him opening his mouth, you'd know, right? If something was going on. If you were sitting next to him and his energy was off, you'd know, right? It's a bit hard to do that through a laptop screen, but I read in between the lines. If someone's always giving me super lengthy feedback in the check-ins and they're always super high energy when we talk and then they're just not. If someone's always engaging with me and then randomly they just disappear, there's something obviously is not going right. If someone's, you know, usually super, super negative and then today they're really, really positive, okay, cool, I can recognize it, you know what I mean? And this is where I think a lot of personal trainers don't realize that before you start throwing training programs and nutrition at someone, do you actually understand people? Because if you don't, you're going to have a lot of clients who you can't bear.
Yeah, you can't relate to them.
No, that's why I said I don't work with men. Because if I was talking to a man and he had something that was stopping him, like a mental block, but he wasn't open enough to talk about it and I'm just telling him to go to the gym, we're not going to get anywhere. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes I'm not what you need. Maybe some people need therapy. Maybe some people need something completely different. So
yeah, I think a lot of it's like power as well. I think it's a difficult thing because at the minute they're on about like females moving into coaching men in football. And I think it's something we briefly talked about, and like I'm the least sexist person ever, but like I'm all for, you know, women doing what they can and whatnot, but it just wouldn't work. I just know from a power structure it just wouldn't work.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is, and it's kind of like when even males, like even when they go and coach in football, unless they've had a prior, like, you know, experience, unless they've been a player themselves before, a lot of the time that the respect and the authoritative sort of like look up can't be a lot, like it can't be distinguished there at all. So you have to have that, and I think it's more highlighted with women. Like, you know, if you've got a woman who's not been a player and then also she's younger and all that sort of stuff, you're just not gonna relate to them.
It's just like, I feel like in the world that we are now, like, don't get me wrong, the direction that we've moved in for a lot of things and being able to open up doors for certain people are amazing. But I don't think that every door needs to be open for every single person, because there's a very small majority of people who are interested in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the truth is, a lot of things can put you in a category to feel maybe discriminated by or held back by. But like, for me, I want the person who can do the job well. I'm not bothered what skin complexion they are, what gender they are. I don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think because we're in that world now where everything needs to be super inclusive on things that don't really matter, this is where things don't really work well for people anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get you.
So, yeah.
So the main question I wanted to ask you is, what is the number one way to lose weight?
To lose weight? I hate these questions.
I know, it's a hard question because I know it's a multifaceted, but if you could boil it down to the best way, what is the best way to lose weight?
Okay, so there's different methods with foods. You can calorie track. You can obviously look at regulated eating patterns, looking at consuming less calories, right? I think the key to actually losing weight in my eyes now is putting nutrition at the top of it. Then you want to look at calorie intake, and then you want to look at longevity, yeah? And that's when we're just looking at food. With training, doesn't matter whether you're bulking or, you know, you're trying to lose weight or you're just trying to be healthy. Exercise in general is absolutely great, right? But I think a lot of it really, when it boils down to it, it is the food. You know what I mean? It's the food people struggle with. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Because you can get someone in the gym, no problem. You can get someone at a class, no problem. It's what they pick. I think a lot of people need to learn a lot more about food, actually have a structure of it, have a positive relationship with it, and then have an amount of time dieting, not just dieting for the rest of their life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's so multifaceted,
Yeah.
because what I might say for you would be completely different to Barbara down the road with 3 kids. Do you know what I mean? It's just the truth. But I think it is, if I was to put it down to 4, it's nutrition, understanding energy balance and quantities, food relationship, and then also longevity.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like, obviously you're talking from the perspective of a woman, and from the perspective of a man, I usually prioritize training. Like, don't get me wrong, you can only, like, the way I've always seen it is you can only go so far with training. Like, you can you can have the best regimes, the best, like, styles of training, you know, periodize everything and have it perfect, but you can only go so far if your diet's not on it. But, like, I always found it very difficult to tell people, oh, if you just sort your diet out, you'll be fine. Like, I think that training, it's a hard question to answer, and even because even I struggle asking it. That's why I asked you it. It's because I always feel like it goes hand in hand, you know, and it's just a percentage game. You know, for me, for example, I feel like it's probably 80% exercise, 20% diet. Maybe not that, not actually, maybe 70-30, but it's definitely more exercise. Whereas as I get older, it'll become a lot more diet, I assume.
Your metabolism starts to slow.
Exactly. Whereas for a woman whose metabolism's different, you know, say if you're a bigger lady or whatever, I think it might be a very, very close balance between 50-50 of food and exercise. So it is a very, like, it's a hard, based on body type, based on, like you said, metabolism, it is a very hard question to answer.
Do you know why I say that? Is because if we look at the amount of people who are food addicted and exercise addicted, there's a lot more over here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you've read ultra processed people.
No, I've heard of it though.
Honestly, I'm reading it right now, and you see me, I'll read things, but I'll always fight against the book. Do you ever do that? And
Right,
I feel like, let me think.
Question everything.
But a lot of it is scientific. Like, that's what it is. It's just telling you what the food industry does. And, like, I'm a couple chapters in. Honestly, like, a lot of it ain't our faults. The things that they're doing to food and the way food makes us feel, even down to how there's a bit about, like, Cocoa Pops, like the sensation of eating foods and the stimulus and everything like that. People are so addicted to certain foods and they can't even understand why. Do you know what I mean?
And it's not necessarily due to the content, it's more of the consistency and all that sort. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Like, even just serving sizes. Like, you ever seen 30 grams of Cocoa Pops? It's about this much.
Yeah.
Are you joking? Like, I can't eat that much. Like, I'm starving. But then when you have more servings, there's 6 times more salt than that in Cocoa Pops than there was in a normal lasagna. Like, do you see the difference?
Yeah.
Like, and people don't know that because when they look at the packaging, it has all these green marks on saying, it's high in vitamins and it's great for you, best way to start the day. It's all marketing. Do you know what I mean? So when obviously I hear women say things like, I'm just so food addicted, I'm like, it ain't your fault. Like, trust me, there's so many things that they've done to it that have made you this way. So.
Yeah, like when I first went to uni, one of the first things I did, even after the first few weeks of doing the sports science degree, it was like I binged cereal quickly. Like, I just started eating oats and stuff like that. I mean, even that's different than it was back in the day. But like cereals, like the processed cereals, I've not had any of them in years and years now.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing a thing and it was talking about steak and it was saying like, the amount of fat like in a steak. So it took like a cross section, like a cut through a steak of like the average steak nowadays, and the amount of fat, like the visceral fat around the steak versus like 50 years ago was just like another world. So like the actual way that they're moving food is kind of like what we were saying about before, of like the preservatives, like the different corn syrups they're putting in everything, and and then they're trying to push like this vegan stuff, and it's like ridiculous things inside that as well, that it's like clotting you up. And
do you know what?
You can't win, can you?
You can't win. You can't. Like, I genuinely, you know what? I have this thing over, right? And this is so random. When I go like at Aldi and I look at chicken, I have to go through all the individual packs to actually, right? But you know why? It wasn't because I thought because I know that there's obviously bacteria. I know what they do to the chickens, But you see, when I went to the Philippines, so my best friend's Filipino, so she took me to the Philippines, a place called Jollibee's. We went to Jollibee's. I was like, why is the chicken so skinny? Like, the chicken was just dead skinny. There was no meat on it.
Right.
And she was like, because that's a real chicken. The ones back home aren't.
Oh, right.
And all these GMOs and the size, like, it's almost like the breast is just bulging out. And now I've just got this thing over, like, chicken breast. Like, every time I see it, I'm like, it's not real. It's all pumped up. Do you know what I mean?
I mean,
that's the real stuff over there. Do you know?
Because you see pictures of the way the chickens are actually, and they're just in a cage,
the
like, getting fattened up. And
the feet can't even hold them up. Yeah. But I could never be vegan, so I'm going to carry on eating it. Do you know what I mean?
It's one of them, isn't it? Because a lot of the things I've seen, especially in the last 3-4 years, is like the gym creeps and stuff, on videos and all that sort of stuff. So obviously, as a trainer, you're in the gym a lot. Are gym creeps as common as they are on TikTok and all these videos?
I've had quite a few. I just think, for me now, I just don't see the point in giving it more attention than it actually is. There's creeps and weirdos everywhere. The Aldi, there's going to be them. I think one thing, I've had some disgusting things happen to me in the gym, and I'm not going to sit there and record it and put them on blast, because it probably happens that many times. Just roll my eyes, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What kind of things? Just like?
I was in the gym once and I was on the Smith machine. And I was watching this guy, and he was sort of like weaving in between the dumbbell racks and everything and the benches. And he was like following me through machines. And when you don't want to be like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. But I knew he was, because we kept locking eyes and I was kind of looking at him. And then when I went on the Smith machine, obviously I'm doing a squat, right? I've seen him with his phone propped up like this in his hands. Like, when someone's smartly doing this. And in the reflection in the back, I could see his camera was on me. So he was recording me from the back. And like, I turned around and I was just like, just give him this look. And I've never seen anyone like switch the body and just scuttle off. I was just like, okay. And don't get me wrong, the truth is if there's someone making you feel uncomfortable in the gym, go address it. Don't make your whole Instagram page dedicated about this random one guy. Like, you're going to get it if you go to a bar, if you go to a club. As a woman, I've just learned now, there is going to be people who look at you and that's the first thing they see, and they over-sexualise you. But if your page is here to spread a positive message for the gym, imagine how one woman who follows you is going to feel once she sees you paying all that attention to that gym weirdo.
I think that's the thing I see. Like don't get me wrong, this creep. I've seen it as well. Like, I've seen people react badly in the gym, and I understand. I'm not saying like, it doesn't happen. Like, we should be fine with it. It's one of them. It happens, and it shouldn't happen, but it does. But then the amount of times that like these videos you see, and they put people on blast for doing just normal stuff.
Joey Swollen just comes in and just says,
I've seen that guy. Yeah,
don't you dare. Like,
it's like most of the ones he does, I'm just like, it's like true. Like I remember seeing ones where like a guy will come over and just like, like she'll be struggling with it, and he'll like start walking over, and she's like, oh, like, making him out as if like to be some weirdo. I'm just like, that is just completely normal. But then
I know.
But then you do get
attention.
Yeah.
You're in an attention deficit, and now you need something controversial to get people's attention. Yeah. Like me, I'd rather post positive things like going in the gym. Like, I go to a very small gym, and I did like a little bit of a video of like recording myself, and some guy came up to me, he's like, I'm not in your shot, I don't want to ruin your video. And imagine me going online and going, oh, why can't people leave me alone to work out? Like, what a creep. Am I a dickhead?
So that kind of leads on to my next question. So like, what are your thoughts on filming in the gym?
Do you know what? I think the truth is that some people aren't going to want to be in the back of your video. So if you do see people looking a little bit uncomfortable, please just consider that, especially if you go to a commercial gym, like, people don't want to be filmed.
Yeah.
So if you are going to film something, just do the kind thing of maybe saying, hey, like, I'm videoing, or just make sure you're filming where no one can be in it. Do you know what I mean? It's a very easy thing to do.
Yeah.
I think for other people who don't like other people filming the gym, I think what you've got to understand is that this is a public space as well.
Yeah, it's not just
They
yours.
are allowed to do that. There's no rules against it. And they're probably looking at the form and technique to get better. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've got no problem being in the back of some random person's video of them doing a deadlift if they're trying to improve. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's one of them.
So as a regular gym goer myself, like I've been asked this question a few times, and it's like a taboo topic with the gym. But get your take on it. So is it ever acceptable to approach a gym crush?
Yeah. You know why? Because where else do people meet people? You know, like, do you know all these running clubs? The dating clubs.
Yeah. We'll tell you after.
And there's nothing wrong with it though, because what would you rather meet somebody who you connect with through exercise? Because there's a lot of research on how endorphins from exercise and even just like little things like someone's sweat can tell you that if you're attracted to somebody, right? Better to do that if you're meeting someone with common interest of exercise, you're probably going to get along and find things that you both enjoy, right? Better than freaking Hinge. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you like someone in the gym, as long as you do it in a polite way and they're single and you're not a creep with it, then what's wrong with that?
Because it is a hard thing. Like, I think it's a lot harder for a guy because obviously we're the ones that approach. So like it's one of them. Like when I've been asked that question in the past, it is difficult because a lot of the time when you're around the gym, it's kind of like that shitting where you're eating sort of thing. Like you don't want to ruin the vibe, and you have to kind of like have a lot of surety in what you're doing to be doing that. But like I said, it's all in the delivery of how you do it. Like if you're just constantly staring at the girl and you're being creepy, then
and
you're
not training, you're doing a little bicep curl.
All you do what you said of like following her around and all that sort of stuff. It's kind of like,
I think people just don't know how to approach people with actual just general manners. Do you know what I mean? It's one thing being a proper creep and watching someone and then coming up and going, what's your number mid-set? Like, why don't you just wait? Because if they go to the gym and you just go at the same time, you're probably going to see them a couple times. You know what I mean? Just kindly ask them, like, yeah, I like it. Can I talk to you afterwards, after your session? It's fine, nothing wrong with that. Do you know what I mean? But
so what are some of the methods that you use to balance your professional life with your personal life? What are some methods that you use?
I don't. I know it sounds silly. I've got much better at it now, like time management. I think it's just because I'm quicker at doing certain things. Like I used to be very slow on like making posts and making all this and messaging. Like I was slow. I'll be honest, I'm not really trying to achieve this ultimate balance anymore that everyone talks about for myself. Right. I'm just trying to be happy. And I think my work genuinely makes me happy. But if I was to maybe have a kid or change my lifestyle, then maybe I would have to reconsider what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? But I'll be very honest, while I'm young and I don't have that many commitments, this is the time that I can work a bit harder and not have a lot of balance. Does that make sense?
I get you. Like your typical 20s.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe if my life was different and you're a different person, you've got other priorities, you're going to have to find that work-to-life balance. But me, like, I love it. So I love doing my work. It's not like it's ever a task for me. Do you know what I mean?
So like you elaborated a bit on it there, but why do you do what you do? Like, what's the motivation?
Maybe there's a bit of ego in there. Can't lie. I think there's a bit of an ego in there of feeling like I've helped someone get somewhere. I just like positive feedback that isn't just about how I look or something. Do you get what I mean? I think for a long time I chased just gratification through compliments. So when people tell me, you've really helped me change my mindset on diet, or you've really helped me love my body again and feel healthier again, thank you so much. Like, there's this just feeling, you know, when I get that feedback. And it doesn't even have to be from clients. It could be from just a random stranger. Do you know what I mean? Like, I had this one girl message me on TikTok who'd been following me for years on other accounts. Like, when she had me on Instagram, she was TikTok, and she was like, you made one video about something about foods, and since that video I've lost 20 kg. I've never spoke to her. She just liked it. She must have saved it, applied the same mentality, and that's made a big difference over a 2-year span for her. Do you know what I mean? That gives me a buzz, and I haven't lost the buzz yet. Do you know what I mean? But I think I'll always want to help people. Yeah.
Do you have any regrets of what you've done so far?
I don't regret things. I don't think it's healthy to. I just feel like you're kicking yourself about for things that are just human. Do you know what I mean? So, no, I don't have any regrets. I think, if anything, the only regret I'll ever have is not saying yes to things that I knew I should have. So I made like this promise to myself, like the beginning of last year, to just say yes. And I'll be honest, when you messaged me for this podcast, like, yes, like I don't think about it in this time. As I said, as things probably change for me in my life and I don't have that much free time or whatever, and I have more priorities, I probably won't say yes to everything. But like, if anything ever makes me feel a bit like, oh, this could be a bit of a risk, should I do it? Just say yes.
What brought that about?
I used to knock doors. So I used to do door-to-door sales.
Oh, okay.
And the truth is, I don't even know who that girl was because I had just unbelievable confidence doing that job. Like, so what we used to do was just knock on 200 doors a day. I'd get doors slammed in my face. I get called all sorts. Someone spat at me once. It was crazy. And no matter what, you just had to knock on the next door and pretend that you were going to get the sale. And I know it sounds cheesy, very homosy, but like, I needed to do more of the door knocking in my business life. And that's what I realised I wasn't doing. I was just being like, oh, I'm scared. Like, I'm not going to post that. I'm not going to talk about that. So, yeah, anytime now, I'm just apply it to, well, Maya used to knock on 200 doors a day and get doors slammed in your face. No Instagram post or no call that you do or no event that you do is ever going to be as nerve-wracking as what that was. Do you know what I mean? I just don't want to look back and feel like I could have done more, you know?
That's a good piece of advice, to be fair.
Yeah.
Who are some of your role models that have guided you through so far? Who are your biggest role models?
First one's my dad. My dad, for sure. So my dad's a doctor. He's a GP, and he's been a GP for a good, like, how old's he now? 50 odd? 30 years? But the way my dad started his life, he lived in Nigeria, come to London, went back to Nigeria, come here, met my mum in the hospital, then had me. And I've watched my dad just graft his whole life, never miss a day of work, never call in sick, help so many people, develop relationships with his patients and then give back to us. You know what I mean? He's a very selfless man and he doesn't ever complain about it either. Do you know what I mean? He's just got a good heart. And I think because he's so knowledgeable and so like pure and he's got such a good outlook on life, I've always said my dad is like one of my heroes for that because I just feel like there's not many people who are like that anymore. Won't do things just out of the love of helping people. So that's probably where I've got it from. Do you know what I'm saying? And then other role models, I don't really know. I don't look up to celebrities anymore because I don't know them. Like, you don't know them. How can you look up to somebody truthfully when you don't know them? You just know them online. So I don't really have any. Do you have any?
There's like that lack of. I do look up to like a lot of celebrities, but I don't look up to them for the reasons that a lot of people look at. Like, people desire to be like them, whereas I just like. Floyd Mayweather had a very good saying of this. Like he said, when he was in his boxing career, he'd like look at specific assets that people had, and he would take that and he would put it in his own box and he would use it. And that's something that I've tended to do, of like look at someone and say like, what are they really good at, like, and then think, oh, I'll try and emulate that, but not just emulate it in the way that they're doing it, do it in my own way. So I'll take it and I'll try and work on it myself, and then I'll have it. So I very rarely look up to someone and be like, I used to look up to people and say like, oh, I just want to be like him. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a footballer and I just wanted to be Steven Gerrard. Yeah. And I just wanted to be Steven Gerrard. It was like, but like as I got older, it was a case of, what's he good at? Like what
value?
Yeah, what value does he have that I really like? Because there's always that one thing. It's not necessarily everything you look at. It's usually just a few things.
I think it's admiring somebody is very different to idolizing them.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I admire Simone Biles. Like, this girl is a joke. Do you know what I mean? Like, I watched a documentary the other day. I was like, she's so sick.
She is sick.
But like, I don't know her. I just know that she can do a mean flip. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I admire that, but I don't want to. I don't want to be exactly like her because I'm not a gymnast. Yeah. So
Because do you know Chris Williamson? He's like a motivational speaker.
Yeah. He's on Love Island.
The ex Love Island. Yeah. That's not how I know him, but But he has a very interesting take, and he said like people that you often look up to, like they've often you don't understand what they've had to sacrifice, like the things in life that they've had to sacrifice to get there. You know, a lot of the time these people, like how they say like, "I'll never meet your heroes."
Yeah,
they're not always usually the people that you think they are, because obviously, like you said about admiration and whatnot, you usually just admire them, but you admire them as a whole. But you don't understand them. Like you said, you don't know them.
Just normal people.
They're just normal people.
Like I've met people who are very well-known athletes and they're just normal people.
I know, yeah.
And like it's so easy. Like even for example, when I went away, there was some Love Islanders there and people are like, oh my God, can I just get like a picture? And I'm just like, just being on telly. That's all I think it is. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But I think you should admire people who you actually spend time with. I think that's what you need to look up to, the people you spend time with, because if you don't, then whatever circle that you have probably isn't benefiting you as much as you think it would. Yeah.
What is the one piece of advice, if like obviously 25, you just turned?
Yes, just turned.
So if you could give you like, you know, so let's say your 18-year-old self a piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Probably start saying yes a lot earlier. Yeah. I was just very cautious of everything. I don't think I had a very good mindset of what I was capable of doing. I think because I dropped out of uni and I thought that my life was over and I thought that I'd let everyone down, and I just sort of fell into personal training and I loved it, do you know what I mean? But I always, in the back of my head, I always thought I'm going to have to just get another job on the side. And through lockdown, I was looking on Indeed every other day because I didn't do nothing most of lockdown. I just fucked about really, and then till I got online and started making some changes. But if I would have just said yes to some things a little bit earlier and took a couple more risks, I think I would be a little bit more further ahead now. But I had to go through that stage before I truly wanted to do it as well.
So when you started saying yes, obviously that was quite a recent thing. Like what has that done for you?
So little things like changing my business to cultural coaching and not just generic coaching changed everything from my content and who I engage with and all my clients who've come through. I started running an event as well. So we started to run Femtour fitness events and we're going to be doing a new program with that. Everyone told me not to. I was like, I'm still going to do it though, because I want to do it. Like, it's not about what you think sometimes, it's about what I think. And I literally remember I was sitting there, I was like, I should run an event. I was like, okay, I'm going to run an event. Because if it pops into my head and I let it go, that's where I start to beat myself up. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, like I ran my first event this year in February. Genuinely just got the tickets out, called it a name, and we had a full house on the first one. And if I would have just like said no or just forgot about it, then I wouldn't have done it and that wouldn't exist. So I definitely just think saying yes to things that actually benefit you, that are actually going to take you out your comfort zone, are definitely something that you need to do more of, especially in business anyway.
I've got a couple of questions, to be fair. So you said a big thing was like timing with food. So what's the ideal timings for food intake in regards to an exercise session to get the best performance?
Can we use you as an example?
Yeah, go ahead.
When do you train?
So I work 9 to 5. I rarely eat breakfast, but I'll have food at lunch, then usually train after work, and then come home and have like a large meal after that.
Okay, I think that's quite regulated. What I'd probably say is it depends what type of training that you're doing. So if you need fast acting energy before that session, so let's say you eat at 12 and then you're obviously training at like 6 p.m. I'm obviously taking into consideration that's quite a long time of not having food. And if your goal is to build muscle, then okay, you're probably going to need some type of feeding from a carbohydrate before. You do in the after, but maybe having something just a little bit fast to give you the energy and the push through would be beneficial at that point. Just depends what type of training that you're doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nutrition and exercise it's one of them hard ones. I just need to know a lot more about the person. But I think for women anyway, there's a lot of proof that having regular protein feedings throughout the day is really, really good for women's hormones and health. Yeah. So probably should eat a little bit more regularly than like one meal a day. That's what I believe anyway.
Do you take your protein before, during, or after?
See, I don't really need to train around my food as much. Does that make sense? Because it's always been quite regular. Like I'll have my breakfast, then I'll have my lunch, then I'll train, and then I'll have my dinner. And all between those windows, it pretty much just I'm just always hitting protein within that. Do you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, I have me days where I ain't prep food and I'm just eating whatever I can whenever I can. This has been one of those days since I've come back. But if I need to be quick or anything, I've really moved away from just drinking protein shakes and having I want to eat real food now, like actual base things. So now that I've done that, it just lasts a lot longer for me and I feel a lot better on it.
Yeah. Do you have any protein supplements? Do you have like shakes or anything like that? If so, which ones?
So I use Freestyle and Protein Works. I'll be dead honest, I work with them, so that's why I use them. I've used Perform. I think they're great. Creatine. I think that you can't doubt the benefits of creatine. Do you know what I mean? But for me, because I'd spent a lot of time like researching cultural foods, I've just started to enjoy more of them again. You know, like base carbohydrates, base proteins. My palate has changed a lot over the years. Like, I don't know. This is controversial. I used to absolutely friggin' love them, like My Protein flapjack bars. Like, you know, they're like 25 grams.
Yeah.
No shade. They taste like shit to me now. Like, they just taste like proper additives and sugar. And I'm just like, I'd rather eat something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather go to M&S and buy chicken slices. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, I don't agree with all this, like, hyperfixation on protein supplements and stuff. I think it should only be a very small part of your nutrition because it's not giving you the health benefits or the nutrients that you need. It's just a shake. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah,
interesting. So the last question we usually round off with is a question regarding the truth, obviously with it being the Truth Temple podcast. So how good are you at telling the truth?
I'm good. Never used to be. Used to lie a lot, like white lie a lot. But yeah.
What changed?
I wasn't lying to myself. I think I was probably lying a lot more because I was insecure. But now it's just like, just be honest. I think you get further with honesty. Yeah.
So is the truth something that you always try and strive for?
Yeah,
Do you ever try and hide the truth from,
no,
especially in your career?
No, not from my career. I think you've got to be authentic, or you're going to attract the wrong people. So me lying is doing myself and my business a disservice. So yeah.
Interesting. Do you have any questions for us?
What's the biggest lie you've told?
You have to turn the cameras off.
What's the latest white lie you've told?
The latest white lie. That's a difficult one. The latest white lie I've told.
It's got to be today, surely.
I've not told a lie today, to be fair.
Not one lie.
Say again.
Not one lie today.
Not one lie today. The latest lie I told was probably when I was going home the other day. I was like, I've set off and I was still in the shower and I was just like, I'm miles away. But it's something we've always talked about that, like especially like we've had that a few times, like telling white lies and stuff, and how often. I remember reading something about lying and it said the average person tells like 30 lies a day or something crazy. And you're like 30, but then when you actually look into it, it is kind of true, but it's something I try and really not do.
There's a difference between lying and then concealing.
Yeah, exactly. So like
if my mum, for example, when I was younger, she used to always ask me where I was going at every part of the day. And, you know, it used to do me head and I used to be like, oh my God, like I can't even breathe.
Yeah.
So she'd ask me where I was going. I would just be like, out.
Yeah.
And I'm not lying.
Yeah.
I'm just not
that's definitely a clever way of doing it.
Going out.
Yeah, like but it's often things like when I do it, like the other day when I did it, I was like, why have I done that? Because it's something I've got way better at. Like I don't really lie. Like I try and be the most truthful person ever. Sometimes brutally honest, but it is something that even I like. You know,
some people can't handle that though.
Into. What do you mean?
They can't handle the truth.
Oh, they can't handle the truth.
Brutal honesty is.
I know it.
You've got to pick who you do that wisely.
I feel like it's a dying breed as well. It's getting harder and harder to do that. Like when I was a kid, like you're saying about the 3 types of people, I'm definitely the person who wants to be told the truth no matter what, whether it's in business, lifestyle, like football, whatever. I just want to be told the truth because I find it most beneficial and I always have.
You've got different identity in different things, right? Like you may want to be told the truth in your work, but maybe on a relationship or romantic front, you may be a bit more less inclined to that.
Yeah.
So for example, I love blunt honesty in business, but if I'm dating, like I don't want to hear everything.
Yeah.
Don't tell me everything because I'll get a little bit weirded out. I'll get the ick. So
it's like there's intrusive thoughts that you may not want to push out there. But yeah. But if you asked a question, if someone asks you, I wouldn't lie to them. Like someone said, "Oh, do I look terrible in this?" I'd be like, "Oh no, you're not." I wouldn't like you look terrible, but you don't look great.
So what she comes up and says, "Do I look fat in this?" And you go, "Yeah."
Listen,
lies.
it has to
You
happen.
can't do that. That's a trap question. You don't answer
Exactly.
them.
Don't ask questions you don't want the answer to. Right, Maya, you've been an absolute pleasure.
Oh,
Brilliant.
thank you so
you
much
very
for
much
having
that.
me. Thank
Brilliant.
you.